I wanted to show you how they come to this yin and yang symbol. It has to do with the winter solstice and summer solstice. So they basically put a post in the ground, 8 feet tall, and then they measured the shadow of the two solstices like every single day of the year. And by measuring them, it ended, and then they drew them on a circle line. It came out to the yin and yang symbol. And then the dot that they have in the white is exactly the winter solstice, and then the dot that they have in the black is exactly the summer solstice, or vice versa, sorry, and is the solstices. They have them like marked out, and that's exactly where that symbol came from, through the summer and winter solstice. That's why it's so important. Everything relates to the sky. The number 222 appears on this Bible wheel. Six, which is the number of man in the cosmos, times 37 gives you 222, which really blew me away. So it's like the numbers all add up. This 22 is really sacred. And the number 37 means the only begotten Son, and it also means wisdom. And this appears 222 verses. I guess the word wisdom does, appears. So the voice of God, his word, his firstborn, Barak, bless, acquired understanding, between your eyes, which pineal gland, and he divided the seas, all relates to the number 222. Now, Wikipedia is basically saying the number 222 is distinct ways of assigning to meet a joint operation to set of tens unlabeled elements in order to give them the structure of lattice. So it has this like sacred geometry, this number, and exactly 222 different 6 edges to a polystick. Now the polysticks, when I started looking into the polysticks, you end up getting a hexastick, which we get back to the hexagram, which is the 6-sided, sacred geometry. And this is on Saturn, this 6-sided cube. It's actually a cube. If you look at it as a hexagon, you can see it as a cube in 3 dimension. And this is the cube where they're taking all these sticks and creating this shape. And of course, the cube ends up being all the sacred geometry, all 5 of them ending up being a cube. They all fit into a cube, and I've done videos on that. But this is interesting how this guy is putting this hexastick together, and we end up getting the hexagram, and he's basically showing you a diagram of how to put it together. Now, I've done videos before on the tesseract and the sacred geometry, but now I'm starting to understand the importance of this shape, how it's a cube within a cube. And if you look down here, we have this dodecahedron. Dan Winters talks about this as being your Star of David, but here it is in the math. It's actually the top numbers are 11, 11, also 11, 11 on the side. And you see the Star of David shape, but you also see the W in there as well, which is 23. Now, what's interesting is there's 32 sides to this dodecahedron. The tesseract. So that shows that this number is really important, this 32. And also there are 24 faces to this tesseract. So we're starting to learn that we're in some type of mathematical sacred geometry reality. Time relating to it, and also I guess our energy, how everything is created has to do with math. And this is interesting here. It says, since the holy city, as the angel reveals in Revelations 21:16, is a vast cube, we can easily see this as a cube of space. The millennial moment, the climax and the end of time, is the moment when the cube of space becomes the holy city of the New Jerusalem. So what I'm starting to see is this smaller cube inside the bigger cube is the holy city, the golden age or the golden city. And we start to see that the ancient biblical texts are also relating to the ancient mystery school knowledge, which has to do with numbers and zodiac systems, and this is all in the Bible. If you look hard enough, you understand what you're looking for. And of course, where else do we have a hexagram? Is in our DNA. Our DNA is crystalline, and thinking that this whole crystal thing that I've been talking about with the boots and our cell phones, it's because we are crystals. And everything relates to our DNA, especially the 222 number, which ends up being lattice, which has to do with this DNA-coded colloids of crystals that are in our DNA. And what I noticed when I was looking at him putting it together, the numbers he's written down here are 322, 322. And that is a very interesting number, which I've never really figured out before. It has to do with the Skull and Bones Society, which George Bush Jr. is a member of, and so is John Kerry. And if you talk to George Bush Jr., and I've seen in interviews when he's being asked about the society, he basically says this: in my senior year, I joined the Skull and Bones, a secret society, so secret I can't say anything more. Here they're saying the number 22 is often called the master builder. The Phoenicians, Hebrew, possess 22 books, and their alphabet is made of 22 letters, which I've explained before, which is created to compose the Word of God. The Kabbalah teaches us that the letters of the Hebrew alphabet are the building blocks of the universe. Now, we've talked about the universe in the occult tarot cards. Says here the underlying occult significance, scientific significance of the number 22 in science would represent the bones of the skull in our head, of which there are 22. 8 from the cranium or brain case, and 14 are associated with the face. We talked about George Bush Sr. before, about his quote, "the 1,000 points of light," and it was also spoken about at his recent funeral. You notice he's standing on like a sundial, and he was the head of the CIA when John F. Kennedy was assassinated. But what really blew me away was I realized it's the number 222 when he was assassinated. If you take the date of JFK's death, which was the 11th month, which ends up being a 2, on the 22nd, it comes to 222. Now, Trump and JFK Jr. were very close friends, and they are very well aware of who killed JFK. I'm going to show the similarities to something else that happened on a date of the year 2022 that definitely mirrors JFK. So in the year 2022, this emperor, Roman emperor, was assassinated, and he was dragged through the streets with his mother, and they chopped their heads off, and it was all because he was changing the religion of the Roman Empire to back to Hamitic Egyptian sun god worship, and they killed him because of that. His original name was Marcus Aurelius Antonius Augustus, and they changed his name to Elagabalus, who he actually worshipped after his death, and that was a sun god, that was a priest that was worshiping the sun gods. Now, in the Vatican, they came across this sun god worship, which ended up being in Greece. It's called Sol Invictus. It's all going back to the same gods of worshiping the sun. And this was interesting that it was found in the Vatican. They opened it up, and then they say here, and the inside was briefly explored and then documented before the opening was sealed over once again. So they want it kind of hidden. And you'll see here that according to historians about Christmas, it was the 25th of December because it was the date of the Festival of the Sol Invictus. So there was sun worship. So, I'm starting to think like Jesus was a sun worshiper. He was the sun. He was creating knowledge of the Hamitic knowledge so that we could ascend our souls. And this is why they also killed him. Anybody that goes up against the Roman Empire basically gets killed. And JFK was one of them. Here we have the year 2022 through the Chinese zodiac system. And they have a cube that they use. This cube is also used on Saturn, and it's interesting. On Saturn, there's a Saturn seal. It ends up being 666, which is man, really. We always think of it as that they're telling us it's evil, but it's actually man because there's 6 protons, neurons, and electrons in man. But it's interesting because it adds up to 18, which ends up being 9. And the color purple is the color, the Queen uses the color purple, Prince uses the color purple, and the purple rain. The political parties, red and blue, make purple. Here we have the heavenly number 55. If you take 1, 2, 3, and 4 and add it in the theosophic addition system, it ends up coming to 10. And if you take 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, it ends up coming to 40, which adds to 50, and then 5 being the center number. And 5 becomes the secret index of heaven. And the Chinese used to use this in their cycle of 5 in their calendar system. I don't think it's a coincidence that the number 5 sounds like phi. The Chinese express their yin and yang through the trigrams. They have a system where yang is hot, which is the sky, and then yin is cold, which is the ground. And the month that starts it is December, which is the winter solstice. So that I find fascinating. Now, the year of the tiger has the meaning of peace, harmony, and good fortune. When I saw the shape of it, it reminds me of the sun gate at Titicaca in Peru, with Viracocha on it, and it's just up the other way, but it's all the same shapes, right? So this knowledge that they were using in China was used a long time before in Peru. Another interesting link in ancient knowledge is the ancient city of Cuscus is also laid out in the shape of a puma, which is a cat. So we got, going back to the cat again. And this city has all tunnels actually going through it in the mountains, which the Cross of Henday in France is basically telling you to go there when this event happens for safety. So everything is related to this ancient knowledge. So with the whole global weather change, we start like they want us to all freak out and get really stressed out. But the thing is, what they're not telling us is in this article here, um, 5, the inside direction of the heliosphere is moving through a local material in the galaxy